Thank you very much, Gaetan and Kapwani, for inviting me to moderate this session and to continue our conversation around your work, Kapwani. And it's a great privilege to moderate this session entitled Aesthetics and Material Culture. And I'm delighted to introduce the two speakers, Royce K. Young Wolf and Michael J. Prokopov. And Royce is a Hidatsa Mandan Eastern Shoshone mother, language and culture activist, curator and artist. She is a member of the Idishuga White Ridge clan and is a child of the Apugawiga Low Cap clan. She has a PhD in sociocultural and linguistic anthropology and an Andrew W. Mellon postdoctoral fellowship in Native American art and curation at Yale University. She prioritizes culturally responsive care and relationship remaking as the inaugural assistant curator of Native American art at the Yale University Art Gallery and as collection manager of the Native American collections at the Yale Peabody Museum in New Haven. Michael J. Prokopov is a cultural historian and curator whose areas of expertise include material and visual culture, design history, architectural theory, and critical theory. His recent publications include Recite, Contemporary West Coast Houses, Hervin Anderson, Smith House 2, and an upcoming book on the artist June Clark. Between 2004 and 2008, he was curator of the Design Exchange in Toronto. In 2012, he curated an exhibition surveying the work of George Baird. And in 2016, he co-curated the touring exhibition True Nordic, How Scandinavia Influenced Design in Canada. In 2023 and 24, he was a visiting scholar at the Yale Center for British Art. He sits on the boards of the Arthur Erickson Foundation and the Nathaniel Dedkurel, and he is regular contributor to Studio Craft and Design in Canada. He holds a PhD from Harvard University and is a faculty member at Oakard University in Toronto. So we will follow basically how the other sessions worked. So Royce will present first, and then Michael will present, and then we conduct a conversation and then open, of course, to Q&A. So I pass on to you, Royce.
Mazagrats. So dojati gragate sigits meet gerishtawakish mazirat agateo sigits. I'm not sure if this is the first time Herada has ever been spoken over here, but it is a pleasure to christen this place. So I work a little bit different. I try to stick with my own cultural beliefs as a maker and as a Herada and Eastern Shoshone woman. And I like to clear a space out, especially a space that has been used throughout the day. And I do that through song. I'm a keeper of some beautiful songs, but the work that I do at Yale University has made it incredibly important that I'm not just a learner or keeper of songs, but I'm also a composer. So this song that I'm going to share with you, which I like to say I shake the church a little bit, which is kind of ironic because this is a church that was abandoned, so it's not consecrated. But I'll say we consecrate it today through my ways and my ancestors and my elders' ways. This song is new to me, and I'm still working with it, but it came to me from a work that was created by my beautiful sister, Sierra Henrys, who's a Nipmuc woman up in Maine. She created a medicine pouch from a found object, a Scottish pipe bowl, and made that with birch bark and traditional designs, specifically to work on and heal spaces of tension, of trauma, of spaces that knowledge could be infused into. And I think that's exactly what Kapwani, you've been able to create for us here. I want to thank the entire group who's brought us here, taken such good care to bring us together, and such thought and attention to the words that we've shared with you along this journey. So I'm very much a believer in the process. So welcome to my process. And I'm going to hold the mic down for a bit because I'm pretty loud and the acoustics in here are pretty fantastic. So I'll go through this and then I'll share a bit of a story with you about how beads from this land and makers in this place have been remade with my own people, the Harads and Mandan. All right, Mazgarots, that we're trying to get working for you. It sounds from my river, that river back home, and sounds from actually the buffalo that also are part of that land. Take a moment to rest, breathe, be here together. These are my big brothers, the Medegadi. It was an incredible journey to capture this image. I was asked by my elders when we were developing the MHA Nation Interpretive Center, the exhibitions there would have a life for 10 years. The elders, when they came in and they reviewed the materials we were handed, we were told with one thing: do better. Do more. They wanted to walk into the space and feel like they were on the land. They wanted to see the sights that they saw when we were little, before the Bakken oil field has taken over our skies. And so I reached out to someone who I knew took incredible photographs, also knew how to work with the elements and the environment of that place. We wanted to know and be able to show what the skies looked like on winter nights when we tell our stories, and our stories about our old ones, in a lodge like this that is modeled after one of my great-grandfathers, Harry Coates' winter lodge, which is quite smaller than our summer lodges. So in the middle of winter, once it was an overcast, we headed out in about -20-degree weather with his camera, my camera, and we journeyed over to the 5 Villages site along the Awati, the Missouri River. And we set up to capture this constellation you see, The 3 stars is Orion's belt, but what's more important about it is that's the beginning of a wrist. And in this season, that wrist is a hand and it points downward. And that's long arm. That's one of our makers from up above. And there's a lot of stories associated with that, but we're out of season right now, so I won't share more. But this night was incredible. We didn't just experience the environment, we got to experience our ancestors, and the only way that I can think of breaking the linear time is at one time we were with our ancestors and we could hear their voices because the land has memory, the same as materials have memory. Kapwani, you've been able to bring us together over materials that have journeyed all across from this land over to North America. I want to share with you today some information about what we call blue cloud beads. They're pendants that have been remade. They've been crushed down from Venetian beads. And it's not the fact that they're trade goods or Venetian beads or glass. It's the fact that they were remade and remelted by my people and refashioned into pendants from the 1600s forward. There's new research coming out that reaffirms oral stories that trade and trade goods reached interior North America long before actual fur traders. We know this because our people already had adornments of these pendants, of these blue beads that hold so much memory. This is the Little Missouri River. It's lined with cottonwood trees. In the wintertime, our villages would be moved to the shelter of the trees. It's also a place where we gather a lot of our materials to make our traditional regalia, to make relationships, also to clean ourselves and prep ourselves. What I do know about the cloud beads or the blue beads is that they were only prepared by certain people who had the rights, meaning that they were mentored and taught, and they purchased rights, whether through goods, through story, through prayer, through being in a reciprocal relationship. They earned the right to learn how to make these pendants. And so at night, some of these makers would journey down to the river after a request had been made, and they were gifted and fed. They would cleanse themselves. And there's not many details of specifically how do you cleanse yourselves, but those of us in my family know that that's when you fast and you pray and you prepare yourself. As makers, we understand that you don't make something for someone else, even for yourself, when you're embodying a negative spirit. Because as makers, we know that everything that we do, we imbue meaning. We wrap that, we bundle it into the works that we create. So the Little Missouri River is one of the sites that runs through so much memory. It runs through the land that continues to take care of us and feed us. But the memories of these places are often forgotten because of colonization, because of contact, because of disease. The Hiradza Mandan people, my ancestors, have experienced the apocalypse so many times. And yet we still hold on to the importance of these places and the ones that we actually greeted and brought into these places. Archaeological evidence at many of our old village sites have begun to categorize the different types of beads that frequented these places. Just in this study, and William T. Bellick, who works at the Smithsonian, has created a wealth of articles from his research on beads and trade goods across North America. He put together tracking glass beads, communities, and exchange. The most recent use of his work is a new article by Heather Walder and Alicia L. Hawkins, Tracking Glass Beads, Communities and Exchange Relationships Across the Atlantic in the 17th Century. The pendants and the ceremony and the blessings and imbuing meanings into these blue cloud pendants were fashioned from beads that you can see up here, this kind of turquoise color. They're also from the ones where they've begun to rot a little bit. A lot of Western perspectives and theories and research always put the agency and the prestige with the Europeans. They put it with the colonial minds. They put it with them as that they were almost the bearers of prestige. I know that these items are only prestigious because our makers decided to use them and select them and adorn materials that were already prestigious with them. And the blue cloud pendants are one of those. They're so valued after being crushed down, reformed. So it wasn't even the bead necessarily, it was the material, but being remelted into forms and shapes that signified honors, achievements, and prestige. And they were used to adorn the most sacred beings, our own children. And they were attached to the tufts of their hair, often pulled down to the center of their forehead and attached so that they laid on their forehead. There's a lot of disputes about the significance of these. Was it purity? Was it children who were betrothed? Was it only women who did this? We do know that women were the makers, but men and women wore these. And there was an abundance of these long before the arrival of the fur traders, that they adorned our people like we wear most of our jewelry, where we like I'm here, we layer, and each one of those is a story, and each one of them is a meaning and its significance. And so the materials have agency. The beads themselves then are brought into a tradition and a process of remaking that is so significant amongst Indigenous people. In the 1850s, we saw the last of these being made. And then there was private whispers and interactions of these being made amongst other tribes that spread out from the Mandan and the Haradza. There's Arikara families, there's Lakota families. There's also Cheyenne families who started to make different types of shapes and forms. And so what used to be majority of blue beads utilized for these pendants began to be yellow beads and red beads and other beads that were being crushed down and remade in the same fashion. So then the other tribes decided that they weren't going to be using blue beads, but they were going to use the same method and the same process, and they would hold the same significance, but they would utilize the different colors. A couple days ago, I came across a research paper that reaffirmed that many of the photos that I had and the pendants I had been working with, those were taken from burials, and they were funerary objects. And so I took all of those pictures out of my presentation, and in a fever dream this morning, after 27 hours on a flight, it kept bugging me that I knew there was a source, that there was a photo I had seen of one of the pendants that was not associated with burial or funerary. It was a commissioned piece. In my rush and happiness, I have a typo. So please excuse me. There's this pendant that I am so proud to show you and share with you some of the language that goes with it from my Hadza people. This pendant was commissioned by Matthews, who was a surgeon stationed at like a fishhook village. It's one of the last traditional villages of the Hadza, Mandan, and Arikara people. He worked with a Sotnish woman, and he provided her enough beads that she could crush them and then remake them. She made 2 pendants. One of them has been lost after it was donated to the Smithsonian. The other one is what you see before you, is one of, I think, the last representations of these blue cloud pendants that have not been used, and that in the work that I do, it's incredibly important to know sources of these materials, so that we're not showing you something that shouldn't be seen publicly. The dots on the bottom signify that the person who would be wearing it was honored. Sometimes they say that those are horse marks, so it brings a level of prestige. In the early 1900s, Gilbert Wilson, which is the typo here, Gilbert Wilson worked with Buffalo Bird Woman, who described how the old ones in Madatagua long ago would make these, and the process of making them. The only word she knew for them was mapoke. And I may not be saying that right, because it was written down by someone who was also translating it. From the Hadza language books that we're using today, mapoke, if we do an X for the K, mapoke is cloud and sky. Arudokish is blue. We also talk about blue as chuba, medicine blue, because blue is one of the most significant colors amongst our people that represents the earth, represents Awa. It also represents Awati, the water, the river. I haven't been able to find anyone else who has knowledge of these pendants. And I don't really need to have those direct sources to know the significance of this work, to know that what it would take to make this work. It's imbued with knowledge beyond my understanding. And I think as makers and artists, it's incredibly important when we engage these works in collections, when we do provenance research and we do outreach, that we are coming from a perspective that believes that it's not just they said, that it's imbued, that we actually have a deep feeling and knowing that it's imbued. The same way, Kapwani, your work, and I see it shifting people in the spaces there. I see it impacting people in those spaces. And some of these materials, they will hold on to that as long as there is that belief and there is that tradition. And so part of the work that I do is to try and balance that research and sources, and also work within parameters beyond my control. So many of the blue pendants should be repatriated. They should go through more of a heartfelt process of the Native American Graves and Repatriation Act. They need to have people to sing them back into place and to put them back in the earth. They also need to have makers who learn from them and sit with them and visit with them to see if maybe this is something that we can revive, because these pendants were about blessings. And the Lakota stories, Ella Deloria documented in her book Water Lily, that it's a child blessing ceremony that they purchase the rights for, to take care of their own people and to create these pendants to take care of that person the same way we do with medicine pouches, like the same one that Sierra Henry's created from a found object and her traditional birch bark materials. So that work is far beyond what we have in academic training most often. And it takes being in community, and it takes being someone who is open to being with makers and maybe even becoming a maker themselves to truly honor these materials, and understanding that even the Venetian artists imbued them, and the women who strung them and their journey across the seas created a process and memory that is also held in these. And when you get close up to these pendants, you can see little portions of the beads. It wasn't crushed into fine powders. There's still fragments of those beads in it. And to know that story really turns the belief that Indigenous people did not have the technology or the craft and skill to do this type of work. It flips it on its head. So I'm going to leave you with that and share the song one more time, and then hand it over to my panel team. Mike down the shut down. But was it out, but I feel it. To my mentors and my ancestors, I give them all the thanks because I wouldn't be here without them. Oh, you can go forward. Oh, if you want. I wouldn't be here without them. And so it's a great honor to be able to be here to share our language in these walls and on this land. So, yeah, I just want to thank my big brothers, Gerard and Paige Baker. Mas graças ao tio esse gets.
Me